This is how you play the G major scale in Arpeggio. 2 octaves, hands together. Get both hands places if you're going to play G major scale hands separately. Have them an octave apart. And play the first 3 notes, G, A, B. And you've found what's called an anchor note because both hands have 3s on B. Now at this point, right hand crosses under, so play the next 2 notes. And at this point, left hand has to cross over. Play the next note. And you found your second and final anchor note, which is E, because both hands have 3s on E's. Play the remaining 2 notes. And come back down. And cross under with the left. Here's your other anchor, 3s on B's. Let's go through sprinting to each anchor note. Remember, it's 3s on B's, so you have to prepare your crosses so that you end up with your 3s on B's and E's. Sprint to the first B. Now prepare your crosses in the right hand. Think ahead to the cross in the left. Sprint to E. Now think ahead to your cross in the right hand and your cross in the left. Sprint to B. Get your cross prepared in the right. Think ahead to your cross in the left. Sprint to E. And now we're at the top of the scale. So go up to the top, come back to E. Get that left hand cross ready. Think ahead to your right hand cross, sprint to B. Get the left hand cross ready. Think ahead to your right hand cross, sprint to E. Get the left hand cross ready. Think ahead in the right hand for the cross, sprint to B. And then finish out the scale. Let's put the metronome on. And while I'm getting that ready, while I'm throwing the metronome, go ahead and do your sprints a couple more times so your fingers are warmed up on it. Now get hands placed at the beginning. Make sure you have a nice gentle curved arch. All 1, tay, 2, tay, 3, tay, 3s on B's, 3s on E's, 3s on B's, 3s on E's. Come back down to the E's, 3s on B's, 3s on E's, 3s on B's. For the arpeggios, we're going to find our anchor notes as well. Get both hands placed for the arpeggio. Notice I've already set up my first 3 fingers. If you don't really have the reach for it, meaning you can feel tension in your palm, I don't, but if you do, maybe just prepare the first 2. Play the first 3 notes for me. Now, left hand's ready to reach and open up the 1 finger. Right hand's ready to cross. Go ahead and play that next note. And you found your only anchor note in the arpeggio. Both 1s are on G's. Now get the left hand ready to cross and play the next 2 notes. And then you're up at the top of the arpeggio. Come back down. And then get your cross to your anchor note in the middle, G's with 1s. Get the right hand ready to cross and then play the last 3 notes. Let's do our sprint to our anchor note in the middle. Remember, right hand has to cross to get there. And sprint to your first note. Now, left hand has to cross to get up to the top and back down to the anchor note. So let's sprint there now. And then right hand has to cross to finish out the arpeggio, but left hand can go ahead and get set up. I'm going to set up the metronome. Go ahead and do that sprint again, especially the one going up to the top and then coming back down. Get both hands placed. A 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay. Think about your anchor note. How left hand has to cross to it. This is how you play the major and minor inversions. Hands together for G major and minor. First, you want to start in a G major chord in both hands. Play that chord for me. Now, the whole point of an inversion is to use the exact same notes, G, B, and D, but to put them in different orders. So we've already had G on the bottom, so let's move it up to the top so B can be on the bottom. So shift left hand up to B, D, and then use your 1 to get to the G on top. Now B is on the bottom. Let's do the same thing in right hand. Shift your fingers so B and D are on the bottom, and I'm using my 2 finger on D in the right hand. And then place your 5 on G at the top. Now B's on the bottom. And play that chord for me. This is a first inversion chord because the third of the chord, B, is on the bottom and the root is on top. In first inversion, right hand uses 2 in the middle. Now, let's switch the order again, using the same method. Shift your left hand so that you're taking it off the bottom note and moving it over to those top 2 notes, D and B, D and G. Notice that I'm using my 2 finger on G, and then that frees up my 1 finger to get B on top now. In my right hand, I'm going to do the same thing. Shift your fingers, 1 and 3 to D and G, and then 5 can reach the B at the top. And now D is on the bottom. Play me that chord. This is a second inversion chord because the 5th of the chord, D, is on the bottom and the root is now in the middle. We're going to shift 1 more time going up before we start coming down now. So remove that bottom note and shift the fingers to the other 2 notes, G and B, and then that frees up your 1 finger to get D at top. Do the same thing in the right hand. Let go of that bottom note. Shift the fingers so that they're going to the top 2 notes, G and B. And use your 5 to put D on top. And play that chord. And we're back to the chord we started with, just an octave higher. And this is root position because the root, or the 1, or the G, is now at the bottom of the chord again. Now to come back down, we're going to do the opposite. Let go of the top note, shift those fingers down onto the remaining notes. Notice I'm using my 2 finger in my left hand. And then use your left hand 5, your right hand 1 to put D on bottom again. And play that second inversion chord. In second inversion, left hand gets a turn using its 2 finger. Let's go back down to first inversion. Let go of that top note. Shift the fingers down to those bottom 2 notes. Make sure you're using your 2 in your right hand because this is first inversion. Left hand 5, right hand 1 can now put B on bottom. And play that first inversion. And then let's shift 1 more time to get back down to root position where we originally started. Lift that top note. Shift the fingers to the remaining 2 notes, and then use left hand 5, right hand 1 to put the root on the bottom and play that resulting chord. Let's play through making sure to focus on what's moving. So we'll start in root position, and then G goes to top, and then B goes to top. And that's what we'll be focusing and saying on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Start on root. G goes to top. B goes to top. goes to bottom, B goes to bottom, G goes to bottom. Now to do that in minor, we're going to do the exact same thing. The same moves, everything. The only difference is, instead of B natural in the middle, it's going to be B flat. Let's play G minor in root position. Now move G to the top. Keep that B flat so it stays minor. There's our first inversion, so remember to use 2 in the right hand. Let's go to second inversion by moving that B flat up top. And since this is second inversion, now left hand uses 2 in the middle. Let's put it back in root position, but an octave higher by moving D up top. And now let's go back down. So, remove that top note, move it back down to the bottom. And we're in second inversion, so make sure you're using 2 in the middle and the left. Now let's go to first inversion. Take that top note, move it to the bottom. This is first inversion, so use right hand 2 in the middle. And then let's go back to root position, take that top note, move it down to the bottom. I'm going to turn on the metronome, and we're going to play the major. And then when we come back down, we'll wait some beats, and then we'll do the minor. While I'm getting the metronome ready, practice your drop lifts in your wrists. G major first. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make the switch to minor. 1, 2, ready, go. This is how you play the 1, 6, 4, 2, 5, 7, 1 chord progression in G major, both the parallel and the bass line. To play the parallel, you're going to start both hands in the G major chord in first inversion. So if you placed it correctly, you're playing B, D, and G. Since this is first inversion, right hand's going to use 2 in the middle. Now that's our 1 chord. Our next chord is the 6. To get to the 6, both outside notes stay the same, and then the middle note goes up a step to E. Play the resulting chord, and it's an E minor chord because the 6th note in G is E. And if we're using all the notes from the G major scale, E ends up being minor. Our next chord is the 4. To get to our 4 from here, our top 2 notes stay the same. Our bottom note is going to move up a step. And then we'll adjust our left hand to be 5, 3, 1, since we're in root position, and hands use 5, 3, 1. Play that chord for me. And that's a C major chord because the 4th note in G major is C. To get to our 2 from this chord, our bottom 2 notes stay the same. However, I'm going to replace my right hand 3 with my right hand 2. My top note is going to move up to A. Play me those notes. And that's an A minor chord because the 2 in G major is A. So we're building an A chord. Now to get to the 5, 7, our outside notes stay the same. Our middle notes move down 1, and play that chord. This is a D7 chord because you'll notice whenever we invert a 7th chord, we always end up with our chopstick notes, the 2nd. The top note of that 2nd is the root of the chord, so D. And because there's a 2nd, we know it's a 7th chord, because only 7th chords end up with 2nds when you invert them. So it's a D7 chord because the 5 in G is D. To get back to our 1, our middle note stays the same. But in the left hand, I'm going to replace 4 with 3. My outside notes, C and A, are going to move down a step. C down to B, A down to G. And play the chord. And you should end up back on the 1 chord, the G major, in first inversion. Let's play through that, focusing on how each chord moves to the next. If they stay the same, we're not going to say anything for them. 1, 2, starting on the 1. Middle note moves up, bottom note moves up, top note moves up, middle note moves down, outside move down. And while I'm getting the metronome ready, practice those wrist drop lift movements you'll need to get from chord to chord. One, 2, 3, 4. Now to do the bass line, you need 2 things. 1, you need to know what the right hand's doing in the parallel because it's just going to do the same thing. 2, you need to know what each chord is, either the Roman numerals or the chord name, because the left hand is just going to play the root of every chord. So go ahead and get the left hand placed in a G major 5-finger pattern, and let's go chord by chord to figure out the root for the left hand. So the 1 chord is G major, or 1, the first scale degree. So we'll play the first note of the scale, G. Now play them together. The 6th chord, E minor. So we're going to take our left hand 1 finger, move it up to the 6th note, E. The 4 chord, C major. We're going to play the 4th note of the scale in the left hand, C. We can move our thumb back now. The 2 chord, A minor. We're going to play the 2nd note of the scale, A. The 5-7. The 5th note of the scale, D. We're going to play that. And then when we return to 1, our left hand will also return to the first note of the scale, G. So first let's go through and say Roman numerals, because that tells us what order to play in. If we're playing the first note of the scale, the 6th note of the scale, the 4th note of the scale. Notice once I play my 6th note and I don't need it anymore, I put my 1 finger back so it's ready to play the other roots. 1, 2, saying Roman numerals. 1, 6, 4, 2, 5, 7, 1. Now let's do that again, but this time let's say the chord names. 1, 2, 3, 4, G major, E minor, C major, A minor, D7, G major. Practice those wrist drop and lift movements as I'm getting the metronome ready. One, two, ready, go.